Now, in saying all this about what areas of digital marketing you may or may not want to get into, there's also a very big question mark about whether you decide to specialise or hyper-specialise in a particular area of digital marketing, or whether you keep it more general. Now, again, there are lots of different competing opinions on this topic, and ultimately I think the answer should be it's a case of whatever works for you, and the only way you're going to know that is through trial and error. The one guiding principle, though, which I have come back to time and again, is a concept called the T-shaped marketer. Now, literally, this means you have a broad skill set across a range of different activities, but you also, to form the T, have expertise in a particular given area. The reason for this is that lots of different areas of digital marketing interplay with one another, and you need to understand those interactions to essentially make your digital marketing successful. It's also a case that a lot of these activities just can't be siloed. So although you might be working just on a given aspect of digital marketing, you're also going to have to be working with other teams who are doing other aspects of digital marketing. So it makes sense to understand the language they use, the general updates that are going on, in terms of forming that broad T-level understanding. Now, I've added a link, and there's a great article that explains this in more detail. And as I say, that should be the guiding principle that you should focus on. Ultimately, though, it also comes in very useful as well, depending on what it is you want to achieve from digital marketing. The reason for this is that by being a T-shaped marketer, you also don't have to know everything about everything. Digital marketing as an industry, there is so much information out there, and to be honest, what makes it harder is that that information changes really frequently, particularly in the areas of social media and with SEO and all things Google. You know, we're talking quite major updates now, potentially sort of every few months. Now, if you compare that to other industries which literally don't change at all, that is a lot to learn, and that is a lot to keep on top of. The way I structure my business is that ultimately the vast majority of my business comes through for SEO services. Now, that's not to say that therefore if any other job comes along, I just don't touch it. Far from it. Alongside the SEO, there's also a number of my clients which also do PPC in the form of Google advertising. And then alongside that, there's just a range of other projects which I, to be honest, define as kind of like miscellaneous because they're often so random, but normally they end up being research projects. It might be looking through analytics, it might be suggesting content, it might be training, for example. Now, understanding all those other areas covers the top of the T. The SEO, and to a certain extent the PPC as well, become the root of the T. However, what was happening is that one of the things which I experienced was that, okay, I'm going to do SEO, and PPC sort of goes hand in hand with that for a lot of different reasons. But what I was ultimately finding is there was so much to keep up with just on SEO that I wasn't being able to sort of learn enough and have enough time enough to understand the PPC side of things as well. So I ended up outsourcing that aspect to a person who I have a great relationship with. So ultimately, from a skill set perspective, it means I can still offer those two services, but it also means that I can still just specialize in one area, make sure that I'm really strong in a given area, but can do other things as well. So essentially, I'm kind of covering all bases, as it were. So it means ultimately that I can still take on other jobs, but SEO is the thing that works for me. Now, if you're watching this, my guess would be that your reaction is something along the lines of, oh dear God, there is such a lot to remember, there is such a lot that I need to learn about digital marketing. And to be honest, there is. But it's also one of these things which try not to get too overwhelmed by that fact. Yes, there are a whole variety of different digital marketing services that you could potentially offer. But ultimately, the goal, I think, at this present moment is to identify which area of digital marketing that you might like to pursue on a specific tactical basis, whether it is SEO, whether it is PPC, whether it is analytics or conversion rate optimization or email or so on. And just throw yourself into that. If other work does come along which doesn't fall inside that, this is what I do, then that also gives you the opportunity to reach out to other freelancers who you could potentially collaborate with on that given thing. Ultimately, it still gives you the job and therefore money. It also gives you some offhand experience about how that digital marketer works in that specific given field. So that ultimately, you don't have to be a specialist and you don't have to be a generalist. You can be a mixture of two, but also a mixture of two which is flexible enough to accommodate clients' different needs. All I would say though, with all of this, and again, this is why I marketer is so useful is that don't just say that you are a generalist. You know, the common phrase in the agency world is you're a full service agency. Find out what it is you like, find out what you are strong in, work towards that, but also have a working knowledge of all the other different areas. And like I say, collaborate with other people when and where you can in order to be able to maximize the amount of work you're getting through. So from here, have a think about kind of the different approaches that you might like to take and kind of what area you potentially like to specialize in. Don't give it too much attention though. As I say, you can change this later on. At this stage, you might find that something that you think is quite appealing ultimately isn't. And ultimately, the things you might feel like are kind of boring, once you get into them, actually can be quite exciting. But it's playing to your strengths, minimizing your weaknesses and working out from those weaknesses who else you can collaborate with in order to be able to still offer work to people and clients.